In 2015, this happened. What's unique about the Olaf boost is that unlike every other famous Counter-Strike esports play, the Olaf boost isn't really a show of skill. It's a show of how busted this map was at the time. Not to take away from Fnatic here, this is a legendary clip and it will never cease to be cool. The point is, this clip is defined by the map that it takes place on, and a clip that plays a very specific role in the development of its layout. But let's go back even further and take a look at how Overpass evolved from its first release to today. Because, let me tell you, the original version of this map sucked. This video is brought to you by SkinsMonkey, a site where you can easily and safely trade your skins. With SkinsMonkey, you can instantly swap out your old skins and get something new. You can use code PENGUIN on the site to get two new things. First off, you get a free $5 after you complete your first trade with a maximum bonus if you spend $100 on the site, and secondly, you get a 5% bonus when adding balance to the site. Combined with the 30% deposit bonus SkinsMonkey offers already, there's an extra 35% for you to spend, making their offers very competitive. Follow my link in the description or the pinned comment and start trading today. Overpass was released alongside Cobblestone in the winter of 2013. These two maps were the first Valve-made maps to be released since the release of the game, other than Mirage. But Overpass was not just a Valve-made remake of a previously existing map. It had the unique quality of being built from the ground up by Valve, and you could really tell, for better or, who am I kidding, mostly for worse. This map took a lot of risks, and not a lot of them panned out. The key defining feature about Overpass is its size. This map is by far the largest professionally played map ever. Its other main feature is its verticality. The A half of this map is elevated significantly above the B half, the only connectors between the two all featuring distinct staircases. Overpass has changed a ton since its release. I'm not going to go through every single one of these changes, but rather explain the major differences in the original version and what we have today. The general theme is that the old Overpass was far more committal than today's version of the map. What I mean by this is that once you picked a route, you're kind of stuck there for the remainder of the round unless you circle back through spawn. The connectors that we're familiar with today are simply not present. Alongside bathrooms is sealed off, and connector does not let out to where we're used to. Instead, it feeds towards graffiti. The B site is also far more open. Construction is directly connected to site, and site itself no longer has anywhere near as much cover. There's also this cool raised secondary peak that you can take into the site. The B site as it was at this point felt completely unintuitive to peek. There were just too many unorthodox angles to go through, unlike a more standard map like Dust 2 where the game almost guides you into the proper way to peek site. The A site almost suffered from the opposite issue, with long and bathrooms both funneling into this one route. Of course, there were other problems, but in terms of a fundamental layout problem that isn't just a bug, this was the main problem with the A site. They tried to remedy this with the implementation of this hut here, but that didn't end up working, and they eventually made site how it is today. There was a very weird point in the history of Overpass where this weird connector from graffiti to A site existed at the same time as half of the connector that we know now, just a thin wall between them. Extremely strange to look back on now, as the current version of connector seems just so obviously superior. Hindsight is 2020 though, of course. This old version of Overpass is completely alien to what we know now. One thing that I do want to say about it is that if nothing else, it was inventive. It took risks, and honestly, some of them were not that crazy. I've said before that I actually think re-implementing this upper peak on Monster would be an interesting change to revitalize today's Overpass. I'm not arguing that it should 100% happen. I just think that this idea was not a totally bad one, and in the modern environment of the map, it might actually be pretty cool, and loosen up the B site a bit for attackers. At the time, it sucked because there were like 12 other places that you could peek B from, but nowadays, Overpass is arguably the most CT-sided map in the current professional pool. Statistically, at the major events since the release of CS2, CTs have won 56% of rounds on Overpass. This is a greater percentage than any other map in the professional pool. The problem with a lot of these changes that I see as otherwise inventive is that they tried too much at once. It's like a pie recipe. If you substitute one or two ingredients, it probably will still be pretty good, and at least you'll know what ruined your pie if it turns out bad. If you substitute half of the ingredients, then it probably will taste like shit, and the worst part is, you'll never know what the problem was. It's the issue with experimenting too much at once. Up until March of 2023, I believed that Overpass was going to be the next map removed from the professional map pool, just since its popularity had waned and it was the second oldest in the pool. Then, Valve dropped the first batch of trailers for CS2, displaying in full clarity a beautiful, new, revamped Overpass. When this trailer came out, I had a number of questions. Namely, how will they address the waning interest in the map? What will they change? And now, we can definitively say Valve's answer was nothing. At least nothing beyond surface-level visual changes. This new Overpass is beautiful, but it still has these same issues that Overpass has had for its entire existence. The unfortunate thing is, that issue is tied into its unique identity as a map. Overpass is too big. The problem with this is that you can't really do much about it. What do? Shrink the map by 15%? Of course not. The obvious answer is to move the spawns up, but you come to an issue when considering CT spawns, seeing as it's literally directly on top of the A site already. So if you don't cut out the spawns, where do you cut? Maybe make this section shorter? Well, that favors the Ts. You could cut 15% from the middle of the map, but that would make a lot of new extremely awkward angles. In a lot of my older videos, I explained an important duality of map layouts in Counter-Strike: experimental maps and 3-lane maps. Overpass is really weird because it kind of straddles that divide. I usually categorize it as experimental though, due to its large size and the verticality at play on the map. The plight of most experimental layouts is that while they have the potential to be really good, nuke namely, they can also reach a ceiling of balance where you can't really improve them after a while without fundamentally changing the identity of the map, what makes the map experimental in the first place. An example of a map that I think has reached its balance ceiling quite early is Vertigo. Overpass feels like it has approached that ceiling as well, but the problem here is that Overpass is mediocre enough that nobody is really calling for its head the way they are with Vertigo. The map has always been good, but not great. And this isn't to say that you can't love Overpass. There was a time when I really loved Overpass, but just because you love playing on a map doesn't mean that you can't acknowledge its flaws. Overpass has flaws, and its flaws are borderline unfixable. A sign of this is how frequently a new broken exploit is discovered on the map. Counter-Strike doesn't exactly fit perfectly when applied to this massive ecosystem of a map. But does that mean that Overpass needs to go? This might be a surprise based on the last few minutes of this video, but honestly, I say no. I think that right now, Overpass's weirdness almost brings a level of normalization to the game and to the professional scene. I had a realization while I was making this video. When I rolled my game back to CSGO to get footage, my first reaction was how much better CSGO feels than CS2 does currently. I haven't said anything about this on social media at all, but I've been pretty nihilistic towards the current state of CS2 recently. I was walking around on the A site of the first release of Overpass, and I just kind of had an off thought about how this version of the map was from a time before almost everything that I associate with Counter-Strike today. It felt a bit weird. And then I realized that the stage of development that CSGO was in at that point is exactly the stage that CS2 is in right now. In fact, we're earlier on in CS2 than they were in Go. So much will happen to the game in the next 10 years. It'll barely be recognizable. CS2 will be as good or better than CSGO in time. I'm sure of it. Let's just enjoy it as it is now and watch it evolve into something amazing. There will be people in 10 years looking back on this first version of CS2 thinking the same things I thought when I was walking around that old version of Overpass. It's almost ironic. I think there's some beauty to be found there. Thank you. Alright, what's up? This is the bonus penguin. I think this one's gonna be shorter because I kinda fit a lot of my post-video thoughts into that outro segment. I threw away the original outro and instead kind of almost winged that one on the spot. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, and happy holidays, of course. I think this one should be released around Christmas. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Shouldn't be too far away. Bye.